Happy holidays, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Paydirt podcast. I'm Tom Hannifan. He is Matt McGloin. Christmas is coming up in just a matter of days, and right after that, on New Year's Day, Penn State will take part in the Outback Bowl against Arkansas. However, on today's edition of Paydirt, we are going to dive into all the events over the last week in regards to National Signing Day, transfer portal news, returns for next season, and opt-outs. There's been plenty of information regarding players and especially what's going to be going on the defensive side of the ball for the coaching staff once the Outback Bowl does roll around in about a week and a half's time. And also on this edition of Paydirt, we are joined by another one of the stars from that magical 2005-2006 Penn State football team, Tamba Hali, former Kansas City Chief, and now a man who has umpteen skills, it seems like, joins us here on the podcast. So we are so excited for this edition of Paydirt. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, and turning on notifications. The holiday season is upon us, and BetOnline has you covered. More props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action. Head to the new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus with promo code BELIEVE50. That's BLEAV 50 to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the rest of 2021. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite sports. The Paydirt podcast is presented by BetOnline, where the game starts. And of course, Funk Brewing is the official craft beer partner of the Paydirt podcast. Matt, it's only a matter of days that people have the opportunity to take advantage of the 12 Days of Christmas sampler pack from Funk Brewing. And if we're lucky, you and I will get all of them from our buddy John, and no one will get them in time because we're greedy like that.
What an awesome gift. I mean, there is no better gift than to give someone than the gift of beer. Right now,
if you're of legal drinking age.
Absolutely. No, Funk Brewing, they're down in Emmaus. They're in Elizabethtown. They have 2 locations. Follow them on social media. They were just posting about their triple citrus. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of the little citrus, the silent disco. Cozy's a great one to drink this time of year. A lot of fantastic beers, Tom. Check them out. Again, if you're a picky beer drinker, they have a number of different types of IPAs or lagers or different flavors for you to check out.
Trust us, their fresh, funky flavors will satisfy your craft beer-loving taste buds. You can find Funk Brewing at your favorite beer distributor and grocery store. For more information, visit funkbrewing.com to learn where and how you can get their fantastic products. You must be 21 years or older to purchase. Please drink responsibly. Well, it's the holiday season, and who doesn't enjoy a nice Yule log? That's right. This episode is sponsored by Blue Chew. Guys, confidence can take you far in life. It can also help you in the bedroom, especially when it comes time to step up to the plate. That's where Blue Chew comes in. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but in chewable tablets and at a fraction of the cost. You can take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready whenever an opportunity arises. The process is simple. Sign up at bluechew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. The best part? It's all done online. So no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA and prepared and shipped directly to your door in a discreet package. Now, you can have the merriest season of all. Be ready for that special someone under the mistletoe with Blue Chew. If you could benefit from extra confidence when it's time to perform, Blue Chew can help. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code PAYDIRT at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's bluechew.com, promo code PAYDIRT to receive your first month free. Visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the Paydirt podcast. Matt, there have been so many pieces of information and so many little details over the last week or so in regards to what players are staying, what players are going, who's playing in the Outback Bowl, who's chilling, who's staying at their mom's house. There's so much information out there. So I kind of want to walk through this one step at a time, and we can all just slowly digest most of this stuff.
Right.
One of the biggest pieces of news actually came out yesterday. This is airing Wednesday. We're recording this on Tuesday. So this was just announced within the last few hours for us. Safety Jair Brown has announced that he is returning to play in 2022. That is huge, Matt. What do you think?
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Look, obviously, he wants to continue to improve. And he had a great year.
He did.
Right? But I think in a lot of ways, and we talked about this on the podcast a little bit, Tom, how maybe his play was overshadowed a little bit by Brisker and some of the other guys on that team and some of the other guys in the secondary, Castro Fields and Joey Porter. So, look, this is a smart move for him, to gain another year of knowledge. So you have the opportunity to work with defensive coordinator Manny Diaz now, right? Get back in the film room, get back in the weight room, get stronger, get better mentally, understand the game a little bit better. So this is great to see. It's great for James Franklin. It's great for Penn State. And again, to have a leader like that return on your team, it makes the transition and the adjustment for a guy like Manny Diaz that much easier.
To the point you said about Manny Diaz, from what I understand, it sounds like Anthony Poindexter will be the defensive coordinator strictly for the Outback Bowl. Manny Diaz is going to be there in more of an observatory, CEO, head coach of the defense type of role that James Franklin has talked about. And then naturally, Diaz will take over formally in 2022. To Jair Brown, he will also be playing in the Outback Bowl. I want to walk through right now, first of all, as I mentioned, all these comings and goings. Let's start with seniors that are staying or going. This is obviously very important. So we already know about Sean Clifford staying for 2022. We just touched on Jair Brown staying for 2022. Wide receiver Norval Black has entered the transfer portal. Jahan Dotson is going to the Senior Bowl. However, he's not made a formal announcement yet on his future. Every expectation is that he is going to the NFL draft. That just has yet to be named. And then there is the expectation Jahan will play in the Outback Bowl, provided that he is healthy. So it's just a matter of waiting to see how that plays out. One thing that's interesting to see how it's developed, Matt, is the linebacker position with the Outback Bowl looming. Brandon Smith has opted out, and he is declared for the NFL draft. And the same for Ellis Brooks, who I have been singing the praises of, and I think is going to be kind of flying under the radar in the draft because he's got a lot of talent. This leaves Curtis Jacobs as the lone starter on the roster for the Outback Bowl at linebacker. What other guys are you going to be looking for to step up come New Year's Day against Arkansas?
Well, we're going to find out, right? Next man up, Tom. That's really what it is. It's who wants it. I can imagine they're probably working through some of those things right now. Right? Who's going to fill that void left by those two guys? And listen, good luck. It's not, listen, and I know we've talked about this before, and I've talked about this a number of times on Sirius XM. I'm not against guys, opting out or leaving. Obviously, I'm not for it, but I have nothing against those guys. That's their decision. That's fine. But making big deals about and doing things like that, trying to convince guys to stay. You know what I mean? I think that's where, it's almost like wasted energy for me, at least. If you want to go, there's the door. That's my thought. That's my philosophy, right? Next man up mentality, Tom. And I think it's because I've dealt with something similar like this in 2012, right? Guys staying, guys leaving, right? There are some guys, Tom, that, and again, I don't know the situation for Brandon Smith, Ellis Brooks. I don't know if they were just completely done or they had to have a conversation with Franklin or what. I don't know, but it is what it is. But there are some guys who, you look at and it's like, all right, we need to have a conversation. This guy wants to be here. He's just unsure. But then there are some guys who you already know have one foot out the door. And it's better if they just continue to walk out the door. You know what I'm saying? So I'd rather have a guy who is 100% committed, 100% wants to be there, somebody that wants to play. And again, I've discussed the way I feel about, these bowl games and what players should do, right? I think you should play for your families, play for yourself, play for your teammates, understand you only have so many opportunities. We'll see. I'm sure there'll be, some more news as we grow closer here to this bowl game.
Yeah, and next Wednesday on the podcast, obviously, we'll be doing a full breakdown of the game. So we'll have a really, really clear idea of
No doubt.
who's available, as will James Franklin, because I'm sure he and his staff are kind of going through the roster, being like, who's here, who's staying, who's going. To that point I was making about linebackers, Curtis Jacobs, obviously, we have the expectation that he is going to be playing in the Outback Bowl. It seems like Jesse Luketa, it probably, at least for the Outback Bowl, will be moving from DN to linebacker to help shore that up. Whether they adjust their base defensive alignment to accommodate for that, we're going to see what happens there. On the subject of Jesse Luketa, as of when we're recording this, we're still awaiting a decision on his future. Definitely a guy who could have NFL aspirations. Some other guys that we're looking at in terms of, hey, what's their future hold? PJ Mustafer, very talented defensive tackle who got injured in the Iowa game earlier this season. His loss was felt very strongly along that defensive line for the remainder of the season. The question is, he's pretty talented dude, Matt. What do you think? Is he a guy that you believe should go, or should he heal up and come back to Penn State?
I think, I think it depends on where he's at mentally, right? Is he at a point, Tom, where he still feels like he has more left to prove, right? Obviously injured midway through the season. I mean, clearly he was the staple, of that defense, especially up front. But that's if he's at a point where he's thinking to himself, he's like, I just don't know if I can do it again. Maybe I need to move on. Then it's probably time that you move on, right? Continue to rehab, continue to get better, continue to get healthy. Focus on your pro day, focus on the combine, and focus on getting, the best opportunity at the next level. But if you're hungry, if there is even a little bit in your mind, Tom, where you're thinking, you know what, I'd like to go back for another year. I'd like to get better. I'd like to help my team. I'd like to improve. There's a few things that I didn't do well this year, things that I know I can do better, and I can go back and even increase my draft stock and get better. Then I think you go back, and everybody talks about the risk of being injured, or look, every time you step on the field, practice, games, conditioning drills, there's always a chance of being injured. That's just that's the game, right? That's the risk you take playing this game. But listen, I've always been the rewards by playing this game outweigh any of the risks, Tom.
And again, at the time of this recording, we're still awaiting decisions from guys like Cam Sullivan-Brown, Anthony Wiggin, Mike Miranda, Fred Hansard, and Jonathan Sutherland. Sutherland, I think, is a unique circumstance because he's been a special teams guy, very well respected in the locker room. He earned captain status for the special teams unit, and he got a lot of reps on the defensive side of the ball, especially this past year or so. With Brisker, we believe, going on to the NFL. I'd be shocked if he didn't. And then Jair Brown sticking around. Does Jonathan Sutherland really give that some serious thought? Because there's a very good chance you could see a lot of Sutherland playing on the defense in the Outback Bowl.
Look, let me start with this. And going back, if I had a sixth year, I would have definitely went back. Right. And again, obviously, I was an undrafted guy. Right. So I would have stayed for 10 years if they let me. You know what I mean? But again, no, it was the situation that I was in, right? I was a fifth year senior, Bill O'Brien in year one, right? I had to learn that offense in 8 months, right? 7 months, whatever it may be. So to have the opportunity to have, that time learning it, to play a season, and then, a whole another year of that offense and playing at that level, man, yeah, I would have definitely gone back for another year. I just think, again, we talked about that. We said it's probably the best decision Sean Clifford could make right now is going back for another year. A guy like Jonathan Sutherland, I think that's a smart move for him. The opportunity to play a lot more football. And if I'm Manny Diaz, I'm trying to get these guys to come back for another year because, again, that makes my job so much easier. I'm not dealing with new guys being put in. And guess what? Hey, you have to gain experience while also learning a new system. Right? There's a massive difference between having a guy who already knows what he's doing and then just learning an offense. Again, similar to something I had to do with Bill O'Brien. I had played a lot of football, right? So I understood certain situations, games, moments, things like that. So I had to learn a completely new offense. That was it. There wasn't like I was a brand new quarterback or a blank canvas. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see, Tom, and again, if you're a coach And, you can argue that, hey, man, you're going to play a lot more football if you come back.
Mm-hmm.
Makes your decision. It should make your decision pretty easy.
You never know that one season of tape or one, say
Takes
something
1
when
year. Takes 1 year.
any starter
Yeah.
gets the opportunity to only start for 1 year, and that's the tape that you got that maybe got you to the NFL or one of the
even a chance, Tom. Even a
Right.
chance.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, I know I had really what I had that fifth and final year for me at Penn State. That's what got my foot in the door.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all you need is an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Get into a camp somewhere, and then you go from there, right? It's steps. It's a process. It's understanding the system. So again, if you have a chance to go back, really, really, really consider it.
The funny thing, you mentioned these guys, with they're seniors, and it's like, oh, okay, what's their decision going to be? And we're kind of waiting on it. And are you trying to get to the NFL? The odd thing about having this 6 year of eligibility is that all of a sudden an invitation to the Senior Bowl doesn't necessarily mean you're gone. Guys like Jahan Dotson, Arnold Ebiketie, Jesse Luketa, Jaquan Brisker, and kicker Jordan Stout are going to the Senior Bowl this year. So, there is an opportunity that you could be like, oh, I'm playing in the Senior Bowl, and then you could do it again a year later, which is kind of insane when you think about it.
Yeah, that's unheard of. Is that what they're doing now? Is that
I think you can do that? I mean, I think the other thing that these players have to consider, Matt, is that the way that James Franklin and many schools across the country have talked about NIL, it's something that James Franklin in the last few weeks has said that Penn State plans to be very aggressive in terms of what they can offer student athletes in regards to name, image, and likeness. So is that something that, man, maybe that's a big reason why you're coming back to school?
Well, now, yeah, definitely. Because look, if I'm somebody, Tom, who, I'm projected to be maybe a 5th or 6th round guy, right? Not that there's anything wrong with that, right? I mean, obviously the dream is to have your name called, right? Everybody wants their name called. But if you can come back and make some money, right? And then while doing that, increase your draft stock,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a win-win situation. It's a home run right there. So it's smart by Franklin. It's smart by these coaches. Again, using that as one of your arguments as to why players should come back.
And these are kids, so get your diploma, get your education.
Absolutely.
Because if it's not going to be certain to play at the next level, make sure you're committed on that front. So, and we speak to Tamba Hali later. Mm-hmm. That man dabbles in everything he wants to dabble in life, and he was very fortunate. Spent well over a decade in the NFL. That doesn't happen for everybody. So that's kind of the situation with a lot of seniors. In regards to the transfer portal, nothing really earth-shattering. A lot of things that people frankly knew was coming. Taquan Roberson has officially received an offer from UConn, so congratulations to Taquan. Tyler Rudolph is headed to UMass, and offensive lineman Des Holmes, we understand, has entered his name into the transfer portal. In regards to additions from the transfer portal, no real news on that. Penn State had been pursuing UNLV linebacker / defensive end Jacoby Windmon. However, he was picked up by the Michigan State Spartans, and there is an offer to Cornell offensive lineman Hunter Norzad. As of the time we're recording this, no decision really has been made yet. So it's still kind of wait and see. James Franklin was very public this week, and it's this interesting time in college football. And Lane Kiffin from Ole Miss said this. He was like, it's free agency now.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be uncommon to hear a head coach like James Franklin step up to a microphone and say, we're looking for a receiver. We're looking for linemen on the offensive side of the ball. We're looking for defensive backs. Like, he put out a lot of different positions of need, and it was kind of a flyer, just like, hey, but this is what we're looking for. Come check us out. Isn't that weird to you?
It's crazy. Like, that they're going to have to draw a line somewhere, right? Because this thing is just, it's getting ridiculous. I mean, I almost agree with Dabo, because I know I saw something Dabo was talking about. He wants it to go back to where if you transfer, you have to sit out a year. Where I agree with that. I actually agree with that.
I completely disagree. Considering the way coaches move around, I think that's hypocrisy. But
it's just, that's what makes it so easy for you to move on. And so easy for you to be like, you know what, I don't want to be here anymore. I'm in the transfer portal. I'll be able to play immediately somewhere else. Right? I mean, it's so simple, right? And we've discussed situations like that before on this show, and what we think of that. But I mean, moving forward, they're going to have to figure something out because it's getting crazy right now, Tom.
Yeah. That's pretty wild. And it's going to get wilder just because this incoming class for 2022, we just wrapped up the early intent portion of the National Signing Day. This is an excellent class that Penn State brought in, number 7 on paper, at least nationally. Some of the headliners are quarterback Drew Allar, running back Nicholas Singleton is an absolute stud and has gotten a lot of national acclaim. There are plenty of other guys that are coming in that are going to be able to make an impact. And you and I both know there's positions like wide receiver, offensive line, defensive line. And now we just talked about some of the opt-outs at linebacker. There are going to be opportunities for some of these guys to maybe work their way in. If it happens in year 1, you're thrilled, but year 2, it's like it's a practical circumstance. So what did you think of the signing day class?
Yeah, it's fantastic. Incredible job James Franklin and company have done with this recruiting class, bringing in top tier recruits, even with the way the past 2 years have gone. So again, they've done a great job. Let me ask you this question though, Tom. With everything that I bring up the past 2 seasons, with everything that's happened over the past 2 seasons, if they struggle again in 2022, do they get a pass because of how great this recruiting class is? And everybody will, think that, well, in time, this class will take us to where we need to go.
Was 2020 not already the year that you got to pass? Was 2021 because it was supposedly a building year for this contract, this extension, the stimulus package? Like how many of these years are we going to be okay with as Penn State fans?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I completely agree. It's a win now mentality everywhere. And there's more pressure now than ever on young players to play immediately, and not just play immediately, but to succeed immediately, which it's very unfair, right? Because I think more times than not, that doesn't always work out. I mean, sure, there's a handful of times where a young kid gets thrown in and he dominates, like Caleb Williams from Oklahoma, or even like Trevor Lawrence. You know what I mean? And I'm thinking of quarterbacks because they're, some of these players over the past few years have done incredible early on, but it's, I don't know, man. It's gonna be interesting to see the way it plays out, moving forward for Penn State and James Franklin.
I think a lot of guys are going to be looking at a lot of Penn State fans are going to be looking at Singleton to maybe crack the starting lineup at running back. The opportunity is certainly there.
And he should. Tom, I don't mean to interrupt you. And he should, but that's where it makes sense because of what the running game was this year.
And something you were just talking about in terms of quarterbacks, this is a fascinating quarterback room. All of a sudden, you can fast forward to 2023 and wonder, is Drew Allar still in that room? Is Christian Veilleux still in that room? And then there's Beau Pribula, who was part of this signing day class and is being compared to Trace McSorley in terms of athletic ability. So this is an outstanding quarterback room that could be developing. And we haven't said that about Penn State in a long time. And you've been in some quarterback rooms where you were like, I'm better than that guy. So it's a good thing, but that type of depth, it's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, I mean, look, similar situation at Ohio State, right, this past year, right? They had 4 quarterbacks there that were, 4-star or higher recruits. 2 of them ended up leaving because of the year CJ Stroud had. That is where I think the transfer portal is a good thing, where this guy's going to be the guy for the next few years. I'm not going to be able to play here. Thanks for the opportunity, but I'm going to move on. I think that's where it's a good thing. So are all these guys going to stay at Penn State, over the next year or 2 years? Probably not. But it all depends on where Sean Clifford goes in 2022. Does he get better? Is it the Sean Clifford we saw in the early portion of this season? If he struggles, I can see them going to somebody else this year.
Going to be plenty of competition right on his heels. Before we get to the interview with Tamba Hali, given all this information that we just kind of sped through, I understand it was a lightning round, but opt-outs, transfers, who's returning, who's staying, all these things, and then incoming recruits. The Outback Bowl is about a week and a half away. Do you feel positive about that matchup now, considering some of the names that are going to be absent and that are going to be playing? Do you feel a little bit wary about it? What's your gut say right now?
No, I mean, I definitely still feel good about it for Penn State. I think they should have every opportunity to win this football game. The way the defense has played all year. And I've always talked about Penn State's ability to get players reps throughout games and throughout the course of the season. So obviously, look, the loss of Brooks and the loss of Smith is huge, but it's a next man up mentality. And those guys behind them have played a ton of football. So, I don't see it being a huge problem. I mean, obviously their absence, will be known, and you'll be able to see it on a handful of plays. But guys have experience. Guys have played a lot of football, so they should be able to fill those voids left. It's a great matchup. Again, Penn State should have every chance to win this game.
Not long off now. So next week on the Paydirt podcast, we will have a full breakdown of this matchup. Penn State versus Arkansas, New Year's Day, the Outback Bowl in Tampa Bay, Raymond James Stadium, noon kickoff. It's going to be very exciting. It'll be nice to have a game for Penn State. Yeah. I'm excited about it, and especially with all the issues going on with COVID right now in sports. Mm-hmm. Fingers crossed that everything goes smoothly. So without further ado, in a matter of moments, we'll be joined by one of the stars of the 2005-2006 Penn State football team, defensive end Tamba Hali, one of the most beloved figures in the history of Nittany Lion football. Tamba Hali is next. But before we get to that, all of us involved in the Paydirt podcast are proud supporters of Thon, also known as the Penn State Dance Marathon. Thon is a year-long effort dedicated to raising funds and awareness for its sole beneficiary, 4 Diamonds at Penn State Health Children's Hospital. Thon is the largest student-run philanthropy in the world, committed to enhancing the lives of children and families impacted by childhood cancer. 4 Diamonds picks up where insurance leaves off to relieve financial stress and provide emotional support so that no family ever has to see a medical bill. Since 1973, Thon has raised over $190 million in the fight against childhood cancer. To learn more about Thon or to donate, visit thon.org. That's thon.org. It's all for the kids. Make a difference in the life of a child today. And on another personal note, we want to take this opportunity to put a spotlight on mental health with a new initiative called Tag Me In. Tag Me In is simply asking for people to tag in on the conversation and help strip away the stigma around mental health. Whether you're looking to lend support, you want to talk, you want to share, maybe you need some help. We invite you to join in on the conversation. We encourage you to make a video if you'd like, post it on your social media channels, and use hashtag #TagMeIn and hashtag #TagMeInUnited. At the very least, we want to hear from you. You are not alone. Tag me in. Visit tagmeinunited.com to learn more. And without further ado, joining us, not only Tamba Hali, but also his son, James Hali. So this is a big get for us, Tamba. Thank you for getting James to do this on his busy schedule. That's the important thing to us. I understand you guys have got a big family vacation coming up this holiday season, so we really appreciate you taking the time. How are things with you? What's been going on since you retired formally from the NFL?
Things have been going well. I got married. We have about 5 kids now. 4 boys, 1 girl. I've been doing music. I enjoy doing music throughout my life, but especially now I enjoy doing it. Went back home, trying to do some things back home, but I have children here, so it'll be hard to do the things I want to do back home as well as raise children here. So I'm taking it a step at a time, but just enjoying the time, because this is time I really never had when I came to the country. I just got into it, and this is like the first time I ever had freedom, to say and be able to maybe express myself the way I want.
Now, when you talk about back home, for those that don't know, you had immigrated to the United States from Liberia. When you look back on your life and the challenges that you have had to deal with, obviously coming to the United States and then trying to make it in major college football, making it a very successful career in the NFL. And now all the things that you dabble in, from music to Brazilian jiu-jitsu to having a family. I mean, it seems like something, if you wrote it for a movie, it would be unbelievable. How often do you get to reflect on that?
I kind of look back at it. It is kind of surreal for me, how my life has panned out. It's a lot of us that came from that war, and it's not a lot of us that have had the success that I've had. But I think I credit it to my faith and how I go about that part of my life, because that was like a foundation for me growing up in the church. My stepdad being a minister, and my mom being a minister, so that kind of held us together, throughout the time. But I look at my life, and even me at times, while doing music, I may look at myself and like, you're a big guy, what are you trying to, fit in? Where are you trying to fit in? And I kind of just, reflect on it a bit, but I don't let it bother me. I just do what I love and do it with my heart.
Well, you are a big guy, and I saw on your Instagram, the last photo that you posted, it's you on a throne. It's absolutely spectacular. Can you explain what the inspiration was for that and what it's for?
Oh, well, I went back home, and there's a song I did with this guy named Christophe. He's a big time artist in Liberia, and it's called Whoa. It's almost like maybe 21 months old. We didn't shoot the video for it, and when I came back, the director named Parachute, he came up with this concept that I should be sitting on the throne, and sometimes you have to let those guys carry out what they envision. But I'm such a stickler on what I want, but I kind of give in and say, okay, whatever you guys want, let's see how it comes out. So it's a video shoot for a song named Whoa. And this is how he presents me, like I'm some king on the throne.
It looks pretty cool, man. It's really cool. Congratulations on all that. And obviously the purpose, Tamba, of our podcast is we cover Penn State football. And, Matt, when I think about Tamba, I remember being there in the student section when you turned Troy Smith on his head. And Matt, I know Penn State fans, like, that's one of the greatest highlights in the history of the program.
Yes, that picture is everywhere. That video clip, Tamba and Tom, as you know, will be played forever in Penn State highlights, Penn State, Ohio State highlights. It's just one of those moments you look back and it'll live on and white out history, at Penn State. It's just in that game, Tamba, the 2005 game, Penn State, Ohio State, that really that cemented the whiteout and what it is today. What was it like playing in that game for the first time and now seeing what it's become?
It was one of the, I want to say, the greatest moments in my life, because I've never seen anything like that. We had losing season prior, and coming into that season, we had a magical game against Northwestern. It was like 4th and 15, and Smoko caught that ball, and it's like, after that, everything went through. And then coming into that kind of atmosphere where Ohio State was, ranked pretty high. And all I remember during that game is what Joe used to do to us during practice. We would scrimmage a 16-play drive, and then he would stop practice, and then would do 4 gashers. So, 1 bag, 2, 4. So we'll do 4 of those, and then we'll scrimmage another 16-play drive. Basically, you're going in slow motion at one point, and that was kind of how I felt during that game. Like, you just needed a last effort to come through so something could happen. The fans it was an electrifying kind of night. Everybody was excited, and but that's what came to my mind at that time during the game, while playing, on how much we worked, to get to that point.
And that's what it is. Like, a lot of people always try to make the argument. It's like, well, they wanted it more. Everybody wants it. Everybody wants to win. But what it comes down to, Tom, but a lot of times is like, who can focus in those moments late in the game, right? Everybody's tired, but who's stronger mentally? And, I always look back, Tamba, to, my days at Penn State when I would walk in the weight room and I would see you training there in the off season. And, I remember, like, I remember thinking, I'm like, look at the size of this guy. Like your shirt would be soaked. Your shirt would be soaked in sweat. And like, I'm just thinking to myself, like, man, this guy's an absolute animal, and fast forward to the NFL, we had the chance to play against one another when you were in Kansas City and I was in Oakland in 2016. And obviously I had the chance, I was a backup, for a little while there. So I had a chance to watch you, 2013, 14, 15 when Oakland played Kansas City. But like your work ethic was unmatched, and it's easy to see why you had so much success, and everybody talks about, you got to put the work in, but as we know, some people don't. You obviously did that throughout your entire life, throughout your entire career. Where does that work ethic come from?
I think during the war, I want to say, from Liberia, the amount of walking that I had to do as a young man, it's unheard of. I mean, at times we would have to walk all day in one direction and then turn around at the end of the day, walk. And you're talking like, I live in Overland Park. So from Overland Park to, like, let's say the stadium, but walking, it's a 20-minute drive, but walking, and then you turn around and walk back. So, that kind of drive came from those times during the war where, no food at times, and you just had to live through the night hungry. But I don't know where it comes from, apart from I just felt like you work hard, you work smart, but you work hard. You got to outwork people. Talent is there, but you just have to outwork them. You got to be more conditioned. And I kind of pride myself more on that, because I knew during the first, second, even third quarter, guys would be there. But I knew that there's a part in the game where they get tired because of the amount of work that you're going to put in. I mean, a lot of battles you're going to lose. I mean, as far as my position, those guys are bigger, stronger, but you just keep working. And I think it's in my dad. I think it's in my mom. I think it just passes down. I see it in my kids. They just love what they do and they work hard at it.
When you look back at your career at Penn State, you matched your work ethic with arguably the best defensive line coach in America, and Larry Johnson.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. I mean, that your work ethic and him, man, that is a dangerous combination. How special of a coach was he in your life, and what type of impact, did he have on your life and your career?
Well, Coach Johnson was like a father figure. He took you in like a son. So it wasn't just a player. He came to his home, his wife. I still have a relationship with them to this day. She will cook. She will advise. But on the field, he's just one of those guys that expect you to give 100% each time. And I embraced it. I enjoyed playing for him, because his faith also was part of the way he coached. He would come out with stories from the Bible, like Goliath's stories, David's stories, and the different ways to motivate us on how to go about the game that day. And I remember guys from other rooms would come into our room because it would sound like we're in church. It sounds like one of those Pentecostal churches.
Everybody's real quiet. Everybody's real calm. Yeah.
Where is preaching going hard, But Coach Johnson, I'm forever indebted to how he coached technique. When I got in the league, a lot of guys didn't know how to play technique. I was so far ahead Um, and so, playing for Coach Jay, I want to say definitely helped me prepare for life in the NFL.
When you look at that 2005 team, and I mean, one of the best teams in the history of Penn State football, and it's a lot of Penn State fan favorite, right? Fans love that team. And, you talked about it earlier where Penn State, they were struggling leading up to that point. You look back, like really 4 out of the previous 5 seasons were tough for Penn State football. Did you know going into that year that you had a special group, a group of talented guys, or was it more of, look, our backs are against the wall here. We're struggling. We have nothing to lose here. So we got to go out and dominate, because that's really that 05, that started that 05 season, Tom, but that was really the start of a fantastic run. I mean, Penn State won 67 games over the next 7 years.
Yeah. We always knew we had talent. The recruiting class that came in that year really helped us. Deion Butler, Darren, D. Wills. So a couple guys there, Justin King. Those guys definitely they brought a little more dynamic to how we wanted to play the game on offense. And then having a quarterback like Michael Robinson, obviously helped us tremendously throughout the year. We were special. We didn't know how special we were, to be honest with you. We can't say, we were really good on defense. I remember the year prior, we didn't let any team score over 21 points. So we knew we had a good defense. But as far as offense, we struggled. But I think we had a chance. We had another coordinator come in. I forget his name, but Coach Paterno shook up a little bit. I think they went to Texas, saw what Vince Young and those guys were doing, came back, kind of instilled that kind of offense into the scheme what we're running. But we were special, but we didn't know how special we could have been or were, because of when you have a team that's lost a lot of games, it's really hard to break that mindset, especially when they're in a game where they gotta, come back and win the game, stuff like that. It's really hard. I experienced it here in the league until Andy Reid came around. We would get down and kind of know the game is over, and Andy came with that same kind of mentality. He's going to change the culture. We just never stopped playing. And, you can see that with the Kansas City Chiefs this year as well. But, yeah, we didn't know how special we were. We just went out there and we played our hearts out.
You mentioned Coach Paterno. We had Puzz on our show last week, and I asked him, some of his favorite Joe stories. So we'd love to hear Joe stories if you have any. But, talk about, I asked you about the impact of playing for Coach Johnson. Talk about the impact Joe had, on your life and career.
Well, I got a few stories. One that stuck out the most was, being in high school, being highly recruited. I mean, I could go anywhere in the country, and Joe showed up with Coach Johnson. And Paul Pasqualoni and those guys from Syracuse was waiting outside, and Joe showed up, and I had basketball practice. After he talked, he said, my hair was like, I had half hair, it was braided, it's all crazy looking. And how Joe was a stickler, you got to look like you're somebody, not some thug. But Joe came in and said, Tamba, if this is the place you want to be, we'll love to have you. If it's not, we'll understand. But then afterwards, I went to practice, and Joe came to practice and started practicing with us. So,
What do you mean, like practicing with you? Like, explain what he was doing.
Like he got on the court, was playing defense, and then took the ball, and
oh my God.
Yeah, Joe's short, so you can imagine. We got some tall guys,
Not so much that he was short; he was just pretty old at that point.
Yeah. But Joe was so down to earth. You can just talk to him. Joe would bring us to his house to, sit there, have dinner with his family. I mean, Joe was cool, but Joe was tough. The story of where I got in trouble I didn't get in trouble, but we're in camp, and a girl comes pick me up, and it's during the day, and she's taking me somewhere, and Joe cuts his car in front of the girl, gets out the car, who's in there? It's your Tamba, get out of there. So I get I get out the car. Joe is gonna suspend me for like 3 games of the season, and the captains Paul and Mike and AZ had to come up and tell him, said, but Tamba was not breaking any rules, and Joe called me in and say, these girls will get you in trouble, Tamba. You gotta stay out of it. Yeah, Joe was tough.
You're not that far removed, from Penn State, Tom. Obviously, you're a member of the 2006, NFL draft class, and 12 years in the NFL, which is a lifetime in an NFL career. I mean, you're only 38 years old. So when you look back, and you mentioned Joe, and like that was the thing. You were going to go to class, you're going to graduate, you're going to play on Saturdays. Everybody knew that, right? You were going to become the student athlete that everybody wanted to be. And, there's that great picture that I've seen 1,000 times of you and Joe. You're in your graduation cap and gown. When you look at where the game is today, our programs, but I guess it depends on, what program it is, what you value, what's important, right? Are some programs and some student athletes, are they starting to lose sight of what's important when it comes to college football?
I can say that because of what the NFL presents. As far as for me, it's been a journey. When I got here, I couldn't read and write. I could speak the language with a heavy accent, but I couldn't read and write. So to have the opportunity to graduate from college and if I want to use that degree, obviously it's broadcast journalism. If I want to use it, there's plenty of opportunity for me to go about it. But to have that opportunity is huge. A lot of guys don't graduate, and because the money is on the table from the NFL, you get what you get this thing where guys go to the NFL, make a lot of money, and then 5-10 years later they're broke. That's just kind of a reflection of education. If you're well educated, you know how to manage those things. If you're not, you get in the league, make your money and blow it because you didn't take school seriously, and you wouldn't understand how to manage those, funds, because money is not forever. If you don't know how to use it, it's a tool. You obviously going to run out of it. But school is very important. I think it helped me the way I conducted myself throughout the league. Being in those classes all the time, working with those teachers. It's the same way you have to work with different personalities on a team from the whole organization. So if you don't develop that skill early on in college, it's hard to translate. We've seen a lot of good players enter the league and just get big-headed and and don't realize it's not your talent that's taking you, it's more your character. So school has a lot to do with that. But yeah, I think I agree with you. I think a lot of people take it for granted because money is already on the table and they're a good athlete.
Last two for me, and I'll pass it back to Tom. But thanks so much for jumping on the show today. This has been fantastic, man. 12
and I'm a huge fan. I never expressed that to you, but I enjoyed watching you play the game. I promise.
Awesome. Thank you.
This is no joke. I mean, I enjoyed watching you throughout your career. And I just wanted to say that because I don't know if we've had another quarterback as good as you since.
I appreciate that.
I really mean that. Yeah, I really mean that,
man. That's
you played so well.
Thank you. That's it, man. Like I say it all the time. I had the best of both worlds throughout my college career. I had the opportunity to play for Joe for 4 years, and then I had a guy like Bill O'Brien for my 5th and final year. So like, I mean, it couldn't have gotten any better for me. And like some guys that play today, I mean, they don't have, one coach that makes an impact on their life and career, whereas I had 2. So I'm very fortunate. Yeah. I'm very blessed, man. And when you look at your career, 12 years, 6 Pro Bowls, you were an All-Pro, obviously a fan favorite in Kansas City. How special was it playing your entire career in one city?
It was a big deal. There's a lot of things that I look at that goes into that decision. I was Clark Hunt, the owner. I was his first draft pick, but I also was his father's last pick. The year before he passed, I was his last pick, and then throughout my career there, they kept me. They could have let me go, but they kept me with the staff. We had different coaches coming and going, but they felt that it was a family. The connection they had. You talk about Carl Peterson. Carl Peterson had a lot to do with my mom coming to the country. He knew a senator named Jack Kemp who was in Buffalo and a former player as well. He has passed, but Jack just wrote a letter, and my mom was able to just get on the plane and come to the States. It's not that easy, so there was a lot of things that played into why I enjoyed playing for Kansas City, and I worked hard at it. And the organization is more like a family. I didn't play for anyone else, so I can't speak about anyone else, but most of the guys that came to Kansas City while I was there say, yes, this place is unlike where they were because of how the interaction with the owners, with the coaches, and how they pride themselves on a certain way of doing things. And so, yeah, I mean, it was special to me. The fans, coming out in Kansas City almost was like playing for Penn State because of the fans. Mm-hmm. They love football here. It's a barbecue festival every Sunday morning. You drive in and they're waiting for you. You walk in there, there's people on the top waiting for you and cheering you on. But I enjoyed my time. Obviously, I could have played more, but I was burnt out. Football is one of those things. I did it from here. And I was burnt out. I got to a point where I felt like there's no reason for me to go and chase numbers and 100 sacks. I know people say this thing. I said, listen, man, I did what I could. I love what I did, and that's what I could do on the field. And let's call it that. I'm not chasing anything. I just love what I did.
That was the impression I got from Kansas City. I signed with them in 2018. Just a fantastic organization. They released me the first day of the season, which was very difficult for me, Tom. But but anyways, Tom, last one from me.
Yeah.
Last I saw Tamba, you were a purple belt. Are you still training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with Henry Gracie?
Yeah, I am. I'm a brown belt now. To become a brown belt, I had to pretty much train with one hand. So as big as I am, I would have one hand in the belt, and I would go against guys who would, either submit me or at least mount me, and I have to defeat them. And so I trained for a whole year with a guy named Dave. He's a black belt under the Gracies here. And then we got Hiron, who's the eldest brother. We got Hiron to come down and take me through the blue belt. Stripe 1, there's a sequence of different, 68 different techniques that you must know. You just have to know if you're gonna start progressing. So yeah, I am a brown belt now, and the journey continues to black next.
Is absolutely terrifying for a man your size to have that many skills. Is absolutely and to that point, Tamba, and I'll end on this because I'm all about hard-hitting journalism, is that when I was in school, we both did broadcast journalism, as did Matt. One of the assignments that I had was to go attend the fly fishing class and collect nat sound. And the calling card for that class was that, oh, Tamba Hali has taken this class. And I remember being out there in this tiny stream and being like, I don't know how they fit Tamba in here. What was that experience for you? You know, there are certain gen eds you got to take, but do you still fly fish? Did you enjoy that?
Well, I didn't grow up on fly fishing. I haven't fly fished since. Well, actually, I did with my kids recently.
Cool.
But I don't fly fish. It was a fun experience. That was the last time I think I saw my friend Tim. Tim Shaw. We were roommates. But that was the last time he and I hung out because he loved fishing as well. And I think he was in the class. We caught the fish, but then we put it back in. Where I'm from, we put this thing on the fire.
Yeah, you did the right thing. Oh my gosh. That's a great memory. And you've got a fascinating resume, and it sounds like you're only going to continue to add to that. So we really appreciate you coming on the show, Tamba. We won't keep you any longer. I know you're taking your family for a nice holiday, nice vacation. Have a great holiday season, and thank you for coming on.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Tom and Matt, correct?
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it. You guys were great. Thanks for having me, and happy holidays.
Yep. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.